Welcome to the Manufacturing Roundtable podcast, where we have grounded, real world conversations with people helping manufacturers succeed from all sides of the industry. I'm Eric Ciampoli. Over the past 18 years, I've worked across the manufacturing landscape, helping companies solve problems, build stronger systems, and create a culture of continuous improvement. Today, I'm joined by Bob LaFranco of California Closets, New Jersey, who brings years of hands on experience supporting manufacturing teams through change and continuous improvement. Whether it's improving processes, leading people, or bridging gaps between strategy and execution, Bob has seen what works and what gets in the way. I hope you find this conversation useful. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our podcast today for the Lean Leadership Roundtable. My name is Eric Ciampoli. And so our guest for today is Mr. Bob LaFranco of California Closets, New Jersey, one of the top leading branches in all the country, practicing lean every day, beginning to end. Bob, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time to join us here on our podcast to talk about manufacturing and living lean, as you could say. So, Bob, my first question for you is can you tell us a little bit about your background and your early background and what got you into manufacturing?
Hey, Eric, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. So my journey started about 34 years ago. I was dating a girl who is now my wife, Julie, and her family owned a franchise called California Closets, which I quite honestly didn't really know too much about. And she persuaded me to come here, and we were dating for a little bit. So we really didn't know where that relationship was going to go. So her dad was like, "Hey, I need to bring you in," and you're not going to have a lot of respect from the guys if you're the guy who's dating the boss's daughter. So I think I need to, put you out into our shop. I want you to learn everything about that. So that honestly was the best decision ever made. So I basically started out in our shop and I learned from the ground up. And I stayed there for about 5 years. And then I became an installer and I started to install custom storage solutions on the road. And that was going extremely well. And then I came off the road and I became the shop foreman. And probably about 10 years after that, we actually started to manufacture our own stuff. Prior to that, we had been working with our corporate office. We would get wood products from them. But eventually, we end up buying a beam saw, a edge bander, and a CNC. And we started in our little corner of the New Jersey.
So, Bob, we've known each other quite a long time, and we met through one of the MEP programs, and we started working together. And what I've never got to ask you is, what led you to go through the lean journey and to adopt lean in your business?
So great question, because Julie's dad, Marty Ginsburg, he's kind of a visionary, and he's a guy that took me under his wing and showed me everything I needed really to know about this business. And it's funny, we joke about it. We call it Marty Vision, right? So whenever Marty would be thinking about something, he'd always think about 2 years, 10 years down the road.
I remember Marty's rule. His rule was no more space, and like that was indoctrinated every day. It's like, Eric, remember, no more space. I'm like, no problem.
That is true. So we happen to be working with a very small space up here in our location, and we put a lot of material through this little shop up here in New Jersey. And it, we don't, we never really thought of it as a disadvantage. We just kind of accepted it. These are the cards we were dealt, so we made the most of it. So I think Marty really was the one that started to look into lean manufacturing and what that meant. And once he educated himself, he brought me into the process. And he said, "Hey, I really think this is where we have to be going because we don't want any more space." So we had to figure it out
It
and
was law.
yeah, so we had to do more with, less, and I think we really tapped into that, and then obviously Eric came along and, took us under his wing and taught us all that he knew, and that's kinda how we started this journey.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that virtual training. I remember like watching paint dry.
It was a little tough, yeah, at the
It
beginning.
was hard. Even I couldn't take it. It was like, you know what? You remember you asked me like, do we have to finish this? I'm like, it's up to you. Let's do it for real. Like, yeah, let's do that.
We kinda started out as a little bit like a Eric, suggested that, you and I kinda work one-on-one, and I think I've been a coach for different sports throughout my life, and I think, a good, quality of a coach is somebody who listens and somebody that is good at what they do. If you're gonna teach, right, I kinda wanna be the best person at it if I'm gonna teach it, or I'm gonna want other people to do what I'm asking them to do, so I wanna be good at it as well. So I think Eric and I took the hands-on approach that we worked independently together, through this journey, and then we brought my team into it after, I felt comfortable, I guess. And I think that really worked well for, my headspace at the time, and I felt like at that point I would be able to have confidence to hold them accountable to something that now I had a much better understanding of.
Yeah, we spent about 2 years working together, and and you gave me the nickname. Oh, Eric Lean's coming today.
The funny part about that is, on my phone, you are Eric Lean Superman, which is kinda, that's who you are,
Wow.
and because you came in and you used to be wearing glasses and
Yeah, I had Superman glasses.
you were this unassuming, quiet guy that was just a powerhouse, and I think that's kind of why we nicknamed you Superman, and,
I
you know
appreciate that.
yeah, you had a lot to offer, and we really,
I'm over here blushing now. I'm turning red. I've never been called that before. I've been called worse, but I've never been called that good. I appreciate it, Bob. It means a lot. So, with all these experiences that we had together, how has that changed the way you see and work in your organization, not just as an owner, but as a leader? Like, as I've always looked at you as a customer I've worked with, where you put others before yourself in that sense, like true leadership, like a coach does. And not only do you engage with those teams, you take ownership of them and their experience. So how has this changed the way you look at your operation and your business as a whole?
Yeah, so I mean, there's 2 things. One is kind of a funny sticking point is when I first met Eric, we went out to lunch and I have to say, "Thank you for this," but I'm being a little sarcastic. We went to a deli and it's sort of like when I go in somebody's home or I see an office, I, of course, critique it, right? I look at it from the storage system, eye and and it really I'm like, "Wow, that's terrible, that's amazing." And there's a lot of inspiration all around the world. So when we're at this just deli, I think Eric is like, "Oh my god, they have to walk from there to over there to get the minis versus that," and he opened up my eyes to, like, inefficiencies, and I think I take that now throughout my life, and it really has broadened my vantage point because I feel like, with my team, I am constantly looking at it, and we've been here it's our 40th year in business this year.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a big, year for us, so we're excited and proud of it. But, to your question, so yeah, I think it's really important to listen to your team, and I think I'm really good that way. I think I like to lead from the top down, and I've always been hands-on. I always felt like, the people that work for you are the most important. They're in the trenches, they're the day-to-day, so they need to be heard, they need to be validated, and I think I'm a pretty good listener that way, and I'm pretty open to those things, so it's a cultural thing. We have, created here with the lean, so I think people have adopted it, and I think that along the way, I have been open to hearing their voice and say, "Hey, I know we're doing this, but I think we could be doing that." And as a business owner, you need to listen to that. I mean, these people are the ones that they know, and you have to trust the process. And guess what? It's not always going to be the right decision, and you adapt and you go, hey, we tried and it didn't really work out, or oh my god, it was a home run, and we continue to go with those.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from something that doesn't work. And the thing I talk about all the time is like when something goes well, you don't always know why it went well. But when something fails, you certainly know. And you have a lifelong experience about, oh, yeah, don't do this. We've learned not to.
Yeah, for sure.
So, are there any habits or routines that you've created or that you've brought from this training into your day to day engagement with your company?
Yeah, I think I mean we've created certain things. We have daily meetings. And again, I think to the things that work for us, we repeat, right? And things we that doesn't work, we fix or pivot from them as quickly as we possibly can. So the routine is, when we hire somebody new, we bring them on board, we show them our processes, and again, somebody new might have the freshest face and say, "Wow, that's interesting," and we're like, "Oh, tell us more," it's because we want to know from somebody that hasn't been working with it for a long time. But we do give them a framework to work within, and I think that's super important. And creating those routines so that when you do it every day, you do start to become obviously more efficient, better at it, and you become an expert eventually. And I think we try to keep it as simple as we can here. And I think we try to repeat the things that are working well and address the things that aren't.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So if it works, go with it. If it doesn't work, reset and repeat. Because sometimes the same attempt from a different approach could have profound impacts on your business, but work the second time, not the first time. So, along that context, what are some challenges that came up when trying to implement lean thinking in real business context? I remember a few stories from the vertical CNC, but you tell me your perspective.
So yeah, I mean, again, I was new to lean mentality, but there was one team member that we actually had that they had tried to introduce that at his last job, and he did not have a positive experience with it. So he made it known to others that, "Oh, this is going to be terrible. It's gonna be an attempt to make you do more work," and it was complete opposite to that. It was that we were trying to make them more efficient, and, if the goal was to make 10 things of whatever it is for the day, that you could work less hard, um, and have better results. And I think, in manufacturing, it's physical. So of course these people feel it. If you have to walk, 10 extra steps every day over the course of the year.
Yeah, carrying a 30-pound partition, that's a lot of weight moved.
Absolutely. So we really had to, speak with this gentleman and say, "Hey, this is where we're going. We need you on board." And honestly, it didn't work out. We had to move on from him. And the others, it was the best decision. Sometimes those decisions need to be made. They're the hard ones, but they need to be made because they're the best decisions for your company to move forward truly. So I think we did that, and the rest of the team really started to notice those wins that you speak about, when you go down this path.
Yeah, that's true leadership is looking at the big picture, not just the individuals. Like, how do we go far together? And if someone's on the team just doesn't want to participate, it hurts other people, including the business.
Yeah. And again, people are set in their ways, that's nature, I guess, of humans, and they need to know that they have to go outside of their comfort zone once in a while. But I think by having myself, go outside my comfort level, and they see that they were like, "Well, if he's, the owner of the company is willing to do it, then yeah, let's give it a try."
Yeah, I saw that transition over the years we were working together. It became, you're like, what would Eric Lean do? And I'm like, no, what would Bob do? You're like, oh, that's right. It's Bob going to do. Mr. LaFranco. He's going to make a decision based on the things you already know. And it was such a wonderful experience working with you together. I just said, I need to have Bob on the podcast to talk about his journey because we've never really talked about it before. We talk about random things at different times. Things come up, and you send me a text, and we chat. We keep in touch. But what did you learn in all of this about leading people and applying lean in your own company? Some of the things that you could say to others, like, hey, this is something you want to do, or this is something you don't want to do?
So I would say that you need to trust. It's a slow burn. You're probably not going to get the results, immediately. And I think anything that is worth investing is going to yield great results. And I think that you need to be patient. You need to understand you're not always going to get it right, and that's okay. And I would say that, even when, you are getting pushback, it's not time to pack up and move on. It's time to figure it out and pivot and go in maybe a different direction, or, at least speak with people and be open and honest. I think that, but I would say, don't, just go for it.
Yeah, and sometimes your biggest resistor becomes your biggest lean champion. Once you get that mindset shift from, I need to protect myself from this tool, instead of, hey, this tool is going to make my job easier. And if I adopt it, I got support. and my job's going to get easier, and I'm not going to go home at the end of the day exhausted. I'm going to go home ready to go spend time with my family, or maybe I like to do sports after work, and you'll have more energy to do that because you're not moving 40,000 pounds of boards a day. You're using the tools that we gave you to not have to lift it up. You can just roll it down the conveyor.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because we had a senior installer and we had changed some of our processes and we load up our job carts into our vans and we pick it up with a forklift and we pop them right in. It's obviously there's no physical, detriment to the installer because we used to hand load before we used to load it with a forklift. And we create these specialized carts that would do that. And, one of my leading installers was like, nope, I don't want it. Don't want anything to do with it. So instead of trying to, go to the person who might be resistant, I was like, you know what? Let's go to the path of least resistance. Let's go to the people that are willing to start. Let him watch from the sidelines. And we started to do it that way. And I think that he started to see that and he was like, okay, begrudgingly, I'll give it a try, and it's funny because the ironic part of that is we were doing that for a while, and then one day he didn't have a job cart that was a loadable job cart, and he had to do it loaded up by hand, and he had to revert back to what he had done 3 months ago, and he was like, "Wait, what is this? This is terrible."
Yeah.
And we're
It
like,
feels
"Yeah,
worse when you haven't done it in a while. And then
yeah."
he probably had a moment of recollection of, man, I used to do this every day. Why was I doing that?
Yeah, I think that was a feel good moment, at least for me anyway, because it was just like, confirmation that, hey, stick with it, even when there is resistance, you will turn them around eventually.
Yeah, and if they don't turn around, they usually turn out and they go somewhere else. I've over the years of doing this, I've seen some people come and go, like the same concept like that you mentioned. They just refuse to cooperate, and then it opens opportunities to those people that really want to engage in an opportunity with an organization that's really taking lean seriously and using it every day to make the workforce a better place to be every day.
It's true.
So I wanted to ask you, you kind of already answered it, but I want to ask you anyways, because I'm sure there's more than one. But what was the moment when you saw lean really make a difference to your team and your operation? Like that kind of like, oh, wow, this stuff works moment.
Mm, um, God, it was such a journey, I think, that we were on. I mean, I think, it was careful, it was calculated, and it took a while. But I'm trying to think of that, like, if was there that one moment, because I think there was, like, small wins, and, it I think it might have been as simple as this is, it's like, even how you position things, right? Where we had a CNC, machine, right? And you and I had worked on where we were gonna position that thing, and we took it all in account. We laid out tape on the floor. We took steps, and we figured out how, currently this guy is walking, 5 miles, whatever, a year, whatever it might have been, and
Yep. We added it up.
yeah, we did the metrics, we added it up, and we were like, and anybody else probably would have just plopped it down into the space that looked obvious, and we created a very special thing. So I felt like for him anyway, he validated what we did because we also implemented a couple of things because, everybody's different heights in the world, and we inserted some, scissor lifts so that he didn't have to bend over quite as much. He could bring up the material to him, and I think he really appreciated those things, and he would say stuff to us, or at least to me, and I felt like it's happening, it's working. And he felt better, and then again, he felt like, he wasn't nearly, it wasn't those back problems, sore things. He was like, "Okay, I did a 8-hour day, but I don't feel like I did maybe last week or the week before."
You're not climbing Mount Everest every day.
Yeah, so I think it was maybe those types of signs or communication I had with my people that kinda started to say, "This is validating. This is right."
That's a feel good moment. Lots of little feel good moments. I remember a whole bunch of them, and we used to put each one of those things. We made a little one sheet about the experience, and we put it up in the hallway, and a little area we dedicated to continuous improvement. And a few of them we did multiple times, and you saw the transition from where it started to where
Yeah.
it is, and I'm sure you've even made further improvements to it since then.
We have, and like you said, I think those visual, posts, whatever that you hang up, people see that and it's in their face every day, and they can see where, we started and where we transitioned to and where we're currently. And again, to see that, like, that the mindset of continuous improvement never really goes away. I mean,
Yep. That's why it's continuous improvement. It's not a project. It's how you run your business.
mhm, yeah.
So so Bob, how do you strike a balance between structure and flexibility as a business owner when there's some resistance, cooperation, I don't like this, but I like this. How do you find that balance?
We're really fortunate here, I think, because we have a pretty seasoned team, and we like to think, how the environment we've created allows people to feel good to keep coming back to work for us, and how they're treated. So I think we've been really fortunate that we've retained a lot of our people over the years, and so we have processes in place, right, that we have tweaked and improved throughout the years. So when somebody new comes in, they want to be trained a certain way. They want to be onboarded and know that they're part of something important. And I think by showing them that we already have these processes in place, and that's the structure part for me, and we have daily meetings every day that we do, and they see that it's not like, oh, one day we have a meeting, then we don't have another meeting for another month. It's we have to have consistency, and they have to see the consistency. And um but they also have to have a voice, and they have to be told right from the jump that, hey, we're looking, you're part of this now, you're part of our culture, and we need you to get in there and tell us what you think, because maybe we might be missing something, and we might want to add something. And again, everybody works a little differently, so you need to, make see how important that is in each individual, and just be like, come to us, and we have to check in with them. So that's the structure part for me, and the flexibility part of it is that we are willing to change on the drop of a dime. Like, I don't mind investing in my company. I'll spend money, and you know what? If it doesn't work, obviously we're going to stop it. But I'm willing to try, and I think they appreciate the openness and the willingness to try. And I don't shut them down. It's not like, hey, it's my way or the highway. I think that's a terrible.
That's a fantastic culture that you've created there. You and Julie and the originator Marty also had a similar mindset, and that's what you've built. You built a community of continuous improvement. Don't be afraid to speak up. If it works, we'll stick with it. If it doesn't, we'll try again. Not just do the opposite of the fear of change. Well, we can't change this. What might happen? It's like if you don't change, you won't improve, and if you don't improve, your competitors will, and they'll
Right.
do it with permission.
Yeah. I mean, we even talk about our clients, right? So if we hear from them, some people are like, "Oh my God, they're complaining." We're like, "Absolutely not. This is a good thing." When they stop telling us what they're thinking, that's when we got bigger problems.
Yeah, that means they're talking to somebody else.
For sure. So it's the same concept with the staff here. It's like, you need to have them talking to you, and tell you what's happening, because when they stop, that's a problem.
That's a bad sign. Yeah, if they
Yeah.
stop making noise, that's not a good sign. That's a bad sign. It's amazing that you see that, and that's why the culture you have is such a great place to work. I always enjoyed coming there every day, and I didn't even work there.
I've enjoyed our talks over the years for sure.
Yeah. And so, what advice would you give to somebody who's about to start or is learning and hasn't applied it yet? They have the knowledge, but they haven't executed the tools yet.
Mm. I think with anything in life, right? When the uncertainty is scary, I think that's a human feeling, and you need to address it. And it's okay to be nervous about what it looks like, and you're not always going to be a quote expert, and you don't have to be an expert to jump into it. So I think you just need to educate yourself as much as you can. And again, for me, it was, I wanted to learn as much as I could first before I introduced it to others. That's just how I work, and other people might be the same. But I think anytime you do something, people always go, man, I should have did that sooner. I don't think a lot of people have the regret that, oh, I should wait it longer. I think it's usually the opposite.
Yeah, that's the conversations I have a lot. It's like, oh, where has this been all my life? And it's like, well, I heard about it, but I just never bothered to ask more questions. I was too busy satisfying the customer the way I've always done it. So, What do you wish more business owners understood about continuous improvement?
Oh, God, I almost think to that thing I mentioned earlier where it's like, it's our way of the highway. Oh, we've been doing this for a long time. You can't really tell us how to improve our stuff, which is so short-sighted.
I
And
win a
it's
lot of $1 bets with that.
it really it's so crazy, and it's like, when I first worked in our shop and then installing and then eventually moving on to different parts of our organization and now the owner, God, my vantage point has changed significantly, and man, each step was important to me, but, the more you're able to pull back, I think it makes you understand the smaller pockets of your organization, and I think for me, it's like, man, when I was in it, it seemed daunting, right? It seemed, "Oh my god," and then when I'm out of there and I pull back a little bit, then I saw more things that were, "Oh, okay, this" if we it just seems like it comes a lot more naturally to me. Clearly, I've been here for a long time, so obviously experience has definitely helped me there.
And here's the one that's not about lean. Here's about something that lean didn't teach you. Maybe it came from past experience, a mentor. What
Mm,
has running your own business taught you that lean training didn't about
mm,
your business?
mm. Um You can't plan for everything. Best laid plans, right? The ones that look the best on paper. I feel like that I think you need a plan, you need a roadmap, but you can't, pin everything on that. You have to know that it's might not work out quite the way you planned it. So I think being open-minded and being able to expect the unexpected is important, and I'm not sure. I think with lean, I felt like when we were doing things with lean that things were predictable, um, because you were calculated in how we laid stuff out. So we did this, therefore that should happen, and I feel like sometimes life is not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It brings to mind the memory. You had that piece of paper on your wall. Don't SHM it in your office. And I used to look at that. It was right there. I know what it means, and you know what it means.
I know
But
exactly what it means, yeah.
uh-huh. And that little sign was your, and I'm like, I remember asking you about it. I'm like, what is that? And you're like, oh, there's a whole story behind it. And you spent
Yeah.
like 30 minutes talking about what that meant. I'm like, for like what, 9 characters on the wall, it had like an entire emotional business learning experience. And that message, I always thought about that. That too, and the one that Marty had in his office with the picture of New York City, New Jersey, being
Yeah.
so far apart, and that said a lot about you as a leader. It's like, this is the foundation that I don't want to veer away from. This message is a reminder. Stay focused.
It's so funny because like you said, it's like, those failures are what we learn most from, right? It's not about the
Yeah.
wins. The wins will add up, if you have the processes in place, the wins will take care of itself. But I think it's those losses or those hits that you take that will like embed in your head like what not to do. And the SMH for sure was a bad experience, and I use that as a driving force to not let that happen again. And I think some people even today, right? They put tattoos on their body to remind them, look down to, be nice or kind or whatever, or be strong. There's a lot of messages that people align themselves with, and I think that one was, yeah, important for me.
Yeah, I call them life tuition. Sometimes they're very expensive,
It's true.
but you never forget. So, Bob, in closing, what would you like to share with the group about your lean journey?
I So ChatGPT right now is what a tool. I mean, you put stuff in there that, you just wanna know about, and my god, it's great. So I feel like if you're in the manufacturing business and you have questions, or concerns or things you don't even know, you can ask, "What don't I know? What should I be asking questions about?" And it's a powerful tool, and it comes back, and then try to educate yourself on the best of if you truly wanna improve your business. And in order to improve your business, you have to change. I mean, that's you have to have an open mind. So that's probably where I would say, first and foremost, if you want to change, you want to be better, you just be open, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and there's going to be setbacks, but you always got to stay positive, and your team has to feed off your energy. And I think don't sweat the small stuff, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, figure out what you don't know so that it doesn't surprise you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. We've really enjoyed this conversation. We hope to see you again in the future with some new stories to share of great success.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure for me. Thank you.